This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mins.
He couldn't remember when the decision was made to live in the abandoned car. Was it even a decision? He couldn't even remember when he lost the car or when the transition came from couch surfer to full-blown homeless vagrant. There must have been a transition. There must have been a moment in time when he decided to no longer pursue the auditions that were listed in the trade publications. Perhaps he was intimidated by the queue of the other desperate actors. He would reward himself after showing up for a series of calls by giving himself the next 2 days off. Then it was the next week off. Then month. Pretty soon, the idea of facing a room full of hungry actors eager to fight you for the same role seemed too much like hard work. Not long after this, his appearance was such that he wouldn't even be allowed in the room to showcase his talents to casting agents. That's when he continued the myth. "This will be part of my story," he'd say. He used to live on the streets until he scored his big break as the lead in Martin Scorsese's big screen adaptation of Insert Title Here. As long as he fed himself that myth, all hope wasn't lost. But it was all a myth, a photocopy of an existence. His will existed purely on hope and not persistence and perseverance. If it wasn't for the randomness of luck, he was scheduled to die on the sidewalks of Skid Row on the 18th of February, 2028. As it turned out, fortune has a strange habit of striking when one least expects it. The wall was ignored, save for gangland graffiti that littered the last remnants of exposed metal. Each day, a new tag would spring up where the last one sat. There were incidents in the late 90s where kids would be killed for marking their gangland insignia by rivals. The superfluous murders that flowed from these actions eventually died out when generations moved on from the loyalties of crime bosses who would kill themselves out of existence. The wall remained. Occasionally, it was tagged by new vagrants. Mostly, it stood ignored by all. Life chose this piece of real estate to be Tommy's abode. He slept beneath its spray paint veneer, night in and night out. He spent most days leaning against it for support. He awoke one mid-afternoon in the cool, stirred by a chill that his sleeping bag could not shelter. He looked upon his wall with a newfound appreciation for the opportunity. It was a notice board, a billboard, a canvas. It would be his mouthpiece. He walked over to the grocer 3 blocks up on instinct, the first time he had left his corner in weeks, possibly months. He ventured inside. The smell he omitted caught everyone inside off guard. He was eyed by the manager behind the counter. He was followed as he proceeded down the aisles. He ignored all efforts to shoo him from the premises. He was there for one reason alone, the acquirement of a writing instrument big enough to make a bold statement. He found the thick-brimmed Sharpie in the 3rd aisle from the back, grabbed a series of colors, and headed out the door as calmly as he entered. No one dared make any effort to remove the stolen goods from his possession. His appearance was so far gone that he was viewed as a threat not to be engaged. He returned to the wall to see the street sweepers cleaning the gutters, rounding up his possessions, his sleeping bag, and his garbage bag full of clothes he forgot he had. They had a gurney, a high-powered water spray aimed at the wall. They washed off the ancient gang symbols with patience and precision. His wall was clean as it was the day it was first erected, the day it was first painted. His wall was a blank canvas. He realized now why the chill broke his slumber, why instinct brought him to the supermarket and forced him to acquire the markers. He was to communicate with the world, and this was to be his canvas. He watched the street sweepers complete their tasks and leave the site. He waited as the sun dried the water residue on the exposed metal. He thought long and hard about what he wanted to say before stopping himself and reflecting that the entire reason this situation existed was the call of a higher power. He accepted that perhaps, although his hand would wield the message that was to be sprawled, it was not his message to create. He walked over to the wall, removed the lid from the Sharpie, and began to write. He kept his lettering uniformed and even. He made sure there was enough space to complete entire sentences. He began his words in the top left corner and continued. He didn't stop. Hours passed. The day turned to night. A crowd gathered. He had covered half the wall in text. It was a story. It was about the re-emergence of the Garden of Eden, a perfect paradise that was born in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that man attempted to acquire, but that nature was resistant to allow. He would not stop writing. The crowd grew larger. A local newspaper reporter came to write a story. Tommy did not hesitate to give a statement. Someone bought him a coffee every morning, and he would drink these to sustain him throughout the long days of writing. The article drew larger and larger crowds, eager to read the works of Tommy the Street Guy. His work was compared to Hemingway and Lawrence. He was considered to be the greatest of his generation. Questions were posed. Who was Tommy the Street Guy? Where did he come from? What else had he written? Someone stood by him morning and night, waving a contract in his face as he wrote. They wanted a publishing deal. People wanted to see for themselves the story that was sprawled on the frailed metal. It deserves to be in hardback, they proclaimed. Tommy ignored them and wrote. The wall was covered, but the story needed a conclusion. Tommy continued to sprawl out the words along the footpath at the heel of the wall. A week went by, and this too was covered in the words his hand would wield by the autonomous force of nature. The sidewalk was blocked off by the city, which recognized the cultural significance of the work being created. Tommy left one footpath and moved along to the left to complete the other. The story hadn't finished. The Sharpies would run dry, and the crowd that gathered would assist by supplying him with more pens and more textas. A police presence was established permanently to allow Tommy to continue. The building owner attempted to sell the wall for $18 million. The bidding stopped at $68 million. Tommy continued to write. The city made plans to auction off the sidewalk concrete mounds as soon as the story was completed. Tommy continued to write. A bed was laid out adjacent to the work, and Tommy would sleep when he wasn't writing. One day, he arose from his slumber and continued the progression of the chapter from the night before. He had progressed 25 meters down from the original wall that housed the beginning of the story. He wrote, as he always did, until one day. The feeling that sustained his progress and energy, the feeling that told his soul what to display on the wall, pushed for him to write the end and did not speak to him again. A lifetime of words summed up and completed, an ending to a task he would never dream he would have the courage of conviction to embark on. A purpose, suddenly ended. Yesterday's news, it was accomplished. Tommy was satisfied. Then he was saddened by the feelings that emerged, for he had lightning in the palm of his hands. It had chosen him. It had comforted him. It had stayed with him. Then it had left him. He mourned his loss as the gathering crowd began to applaud.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.